This is the future of Africa. In this program, we focus on Horn of Africa's political, economic, and socio-cultural aspects. Let's share our vision, hopes, and professional critics. All views are esteemed. Stay with us. Sena, welcome to this program.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Hussein. Good to be here.
Sena Jimjimo is an executive director of the Oromo Legacy Leadership and Advocacy Association, OLA. OLA is an Oromo-led human rights organization seeking to connect, unify, and organize Oromos around their common cause, and it has been serving as a voice for the voiceless, and indeed, Sena is a lead actor of this. And taken as a whole, Sena is a woman who is determined to protect people from human rights violation universally, and the Oromo people in particular. Sena, welcome again, and let's start our discussion. I would like to pose one simple question. From where you are now and the latest press releases, I think you have made 2 press releases, and the first press release was on the side event at the African Commission on Human Rights and People Rights in Gambia. What was the essence of that happening, and who involved in it, and a bit describe for us?
Yeah, thank you, Professor, for that generous introduction. I'm happy to be back here. It's been some time since we last time spoke. So much have happened since then. We've traveled to Europe, and now here in motherland. So I'm here in the Gambia. This is not my first time in the Gambia, but this is indeed my first time attending the African Commission on People's and Human Rights, Human and People's Rights, and have the luxury and the opportunity to meet, with the commissioners, the special rapporteur on Ethiopia, and CSOs, and NRH, International Institution that operates in the region as well as in Ethiopia and across from the different countries as well. I'm as I mentioned in the Gambia, just really raising the bar or raising the voices of the voiceless Oromos, too often for so long have been marginalized by almost all the regimes in that country for 100+ years. And the side event, as you mentioned, is an event that is organized by a huge organization. It's called IHRDA. It's an international institution that have been persecuting government who committed human rights violation. They have done across the continent. They are I believe, about 35 years or 40 years old. And they have done a tremendous job. So the event that was hosted by them, but I am a panelist among the panelists, and along with me was the commissioner, who is the special rapporteur on Ethiopia, as well as the OSF, Open Society Foundation, one of the largest foundations that operates across the whole world. They are funded by different organizations, and also 2 other individuals who are also concerned about human rights situation in Ethiopia and across the continent. So this is the first time we have this side event, and the internet situation, not the internet, but my connection had a little bit of an issue, so we did not really air the whole thing continuously, but the conversation took about 2 hours. Along the attendees was also the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. There's about 5 of the members, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5 of them were there. So it was really great opportunity to kind of, they heard directly from us our concern about their institution as well as the Ethiopian government's human rights violation, particularly against the Oromos that are not getting any attention. Along with them is also many CSOs, international human rights organizations in the room that heard and were able to ask questions, and were able to also answer to them directly.
Thank you, Sena. Let's dive into the second press release, and I think you have released a press release on the drone attacks being carried out by the Ethiopian government in Oromia in recent days. That was an occasion which led to the deaths of a number of Oromo people, and particularly civilians. And what was in it, in that press release?
So I think, as you saw the press release, Dr. Hussein, is that one of the, in a rare occasion, that the international community, the international media covers the atrocity, the civilians that are facing in Oromia. I think the world knows what's happening in the northern part of Ethiopia, but they have no knowledge, for many different reasons, the atrocity civilians are facing, whether it is human rights violation or whether the humanitarian need because of the environment in a southern part of Ethiopia, where somewhere between 10 to 15 million people, are now estimate, are in desperate need of food help. So in this particular press release, we talked about it, that we condemned the violence by the federal government that used indiscriminately against civilians, that includes women and children, and at the ceremony that was being held, according to AP, that reported original report, as well as Washington Post, and even ABC have covered this atrocity. That goes to show that the violation against civilians is not just happening in the northern part, and this actually came on the back of the discussion that's going on in South Africa. As you know, there is a TPLF and the federal government are in a negotiation, or at least in a preparation of that, setting the rules, and the U.S. is officially, openly on the table this time. They are represented there. They're pushing. So this incident happened not the first time. This is it's a series of events the government seems to be targeting, and obviously there's the human rights violation is committed by all parties, and we do believe that all parties are responsible, but the severity is not comparable what the government is doing. Government have a solo responsibility to protect the civilians, and they not only felt that, they became the perpetuators of that violence. So that's what the second press release is literally condemning and raising awareness that when this discussion is being held, South Africa or whatever else might be in the future, that the situation about other region will also come into play. Should at least come into play.
Thank you. We'll be back to that point if possible. Like taking a bit about Africa itself. Let's talk about it. And the Africa mission itself, often they don't do anything, and in fact, they did practically nothing. And in Ethiopia, very damaging and worsening war is there for about 2 years, and the Africans, they never vote for that, and sometimes they stand against the condemnation of the Ethiopian government acts. And what hope can we have, or what do you think the world can expect from them?
And I think, Dr. Hussein, this is my first time attending the commission, African Commission. With that, I had a luxury of seeing things in a much closer distance versus when I was in the West, when I was in America, closely, completely criticizing them for failure, not to act, forget the acting part, for failure to condemn the Ethiopian government that is using food as a weapon of war, rape as a weapon of war, and ethnic cleansing, and war crime, and possibly genocide against ethnic groups. And yet the continent have remained numbed or mummed, unable to even condemn, let alone act collectively. So I have gotten a little bit of a better view, the fact that I'm in there, and the fact that I engaged with the leaders, and why did Africa choose to remain numb, even when the international communities are pushing or calling out for cessation of violence in the war, even it's not in Oromia, but at least in the war that is taking place in the northern part of the country. So, but the fact that I'm here, that I something that I saw a little bit better, is that the situation is much complicated. Ethiopia is not just any country in the continent. To many angles, the way even from CSOs, how Ethiopia in the war is framed is much different and complicated than just as it's just like what a government against civilians or against the whole region is cut out. It almost seems like to a certain degree, what I heard is that Ethiopia is taking this angle of they're taking the war with America as if the war is between America or the West versus Africa. So Ethiopia have played that game of making the conflict far beyond Ethiopia, far beyond the federal government and certain regional actors from like the Amhara Fanos, the Amhara militias, or certain radicals who are committing this violence rather imperialistic war. So because of that, certain individuals, they feel like Ethiopia, we must support Ethiopia because America with no moral authority is coming, imposing its will on Africa. It's imposing its will in Ethiopia, our beloved Ethiopia, our beloved, the only nation that is uncolonized. So there's this brotherhood of coming to Ethiopia's defense. On the other side, also you got to look at the size of Ethiopia. Not only in terms of population being the second largest, but also the image Ethiopia have built over the last 100+ years. The fact that Ethiopia was not, quote unquote, I would say, uncolonized, it portrays this powerhouse that some countries, they simply don't have the will to, or the interest, or they are, if I can put it in plain language, they're afraid of Ethiopia. They really don't want to. Ethiopia is this giant house. They don't really want to say that. The third reason is, if you look at it, like we're talking about, the continent is full of dictators. So if Ethiopia were to be criticized for its human rights violation, tomorrow Mauritania will be criticized for slaveholding, and then other countries will be criticized for something else. So instead of that, like collectively, you get my back, I get you back, is the kind of incentive the regionals, some of the leaders seem to operate. And number four, if you look at it, the economy situation also plays a significant role. I mean, the continent after the COVID, and it's a very poor country, poor with the human rights, poor with the poverty, with the disease. So many factors plays into it. So that angle is an angle that I did not have before I came here. But now after I came, I have that better angle. Nevertheless, I do still, criticize that I feel like the continent is failing the people of Ethiopia, whether that be in the Tigrayans or the Oromos and other, and not just even within the Ethiopian border. Look at what's happening in Sudan. This is what's happening in Somalia and many other parts that the continent did not take what it takes. But if I can add something, is we today we just finished a statement where the Oromo issue is officially given to the whole commission. I don't think the video is public. We'll try to make it public. What the Ethiopian government as well as the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission have responded to the statement that's made by IHRDA. So that's a significant thing. And our brothers here in Somalia and Tigray community are also, as you know, have made a statement 2 days ago, and that the Ethiopian government have responded to that. So that getting that kind of response, so we're bringing the advocacy from the West along here back in the continent, and I think that is significant.
Thank you, Sena. Let's a bit move to the next door, that's South Africa. As you know, discussion is going on between the Ethiopian government and the TDF in South Africa. How do you see that?
I just had a busy BBC interview that what I think about it. I'm optimistic. At the same time, also the reality of Ethiopia, Professor. I think this Ethiopia. You got to look at how Ethiopia got to where it is right now. Ethiopia is a country or leaders who believe in zero-sum game. You have to lose completely for me to win. There is no win-win in that country. It's not something that is known. So when you look at that angle, and then seeing the fact that how the war is still ongoing, even as the dialogue have started, it gives you a dark picture that there is no hope. This government is going to push all the way there until they capture Mekelle. And then once they capture, they want a complete surrender of the TPLF, and that's going to be unlikely. So that kind of paints a dark picture, or there's no hope for it. But on the other side, if you look at it, compared to all the previous dialogue or discussion that's been held, this is the first one much serious. If you look at the U.S. tone, if you look at the American publication, the American media, the Congress, I mean, we are talking to Congress, that possibility of passing the bill as soon as if the war continues and we are past the election. Congress is pushing both the House and the Senate bill to pass on it. There's a much serious push that to against Biden administration, against State Department for failing to act or failing to pursue or failing. Basically, there's this notion that diplomacy have failed, so there's got to be some kind of action. And I think that message have relied to the Prime Minister, relied to Ethiopian government clearly that we can no longer continue the status quo of committing such a violence. And U.S. is, as I mentioned, is openly on a dialogue. They are part of they have two people representing them. You can see that this is much serious, and so that the tone of the Congress, the tone of the media, and everything kind of give me hope that this time there will be some lasting I guess a truce, if there is a truce, is going to be, and I think that truce will definitely come. And you also have to look at what the Secretary of State Antony Blinken have tweeted. So when I see that, I'm a little bit optimistic.
Thanks so much. And let me take you to the other side of your travel. I think before 1 month you traveled to Europe, Geneva, and you did participate in a very big occasion, yet talking about the Oromos and human rights violation related issues. And what was that, and what did happen there?
Indeed, Professor. I think the organization I represent were, I don't know how to define it, was lucky enough that we were invited by the UN Commission. If you remember, in November 15, 2021, joint report between Ethiopian Human Rights Commission and the UN was produced or published on, it's supposed to be November 1st, but it got published on the 15th. And literally about a month later, on December 17, because that report was seen to be biased pro-government, the UN created a commission of 3 people to investigate the whole atrocity. That mandate covers the whole country, but the investigation focused in the northern part of the country, between mainly Amhara and the Tigray area. So we've been pushing for it since the murder of Hajalu. We have asked the UN to investigate the murder of the surrounding event into the murder of Hajalu, and across ever since that happened. We have asked the U.S. government, we have asked different agencies to investigate this, the violence that took place since June 29 of 2020. Because of that, obviously, the UN reached out to us earlier this year, and we've been kind of loosely working with them about the violation that's happening in Oromia, and kind of pushing the UN to make sure that a lasting peace, a sustainable peace, can only come through Oromia. Whether Ethiopia will be a stable country, whether Ethiopia will continue at the path that they are, is really going to be determined what's happening, because of the size of Oromo, as well as the location of Oromo, makes the Oromo very critical factor. And as you can see on the publication that came out in September, they have a credible evidence to believe that there is a violation that took place, that they are going to investigate or include the investigation into Oromia. So we made the same case that we've been making on the media without really going too much into detail. That is a private conversation. But we are very thrilled and happy to see the mandate was renewed just a couple of weeks ago. And now is the time for the UN international community to use this UN mandate to make sure that we get some kind of justice, because they cannot be transitioned to anything without justice, without some kind of accountability. And we also don't believe that selective justice, where you can look into the violation in the northern part of the country, where you intentionally close your eyes and ears, then you don't want to know what's going on in the southern part of the country, not just in Oromia, but the other region. So I think, so that was a personal dream come true. I've dreamed all of my life, to be honest with you, justice for the Oromo people, not just about what happened in the last 3-4 years, but across, if possible, as early as this minute. I'm saying the atrocity our people faced is unspeakable. That country is, what this country is doing itself, to its people, to its wives, to its mothers, to its sisters, it makes me wonder, the kind of people we are. We savage, and is humanity savage, and how harshly we are, more than some of the stuff I've read, what slavery looked like. I've read what the colonialism looked like when the West colonized Africa, and what I see what these people are doing to each other, what are we doing to ourselves, it breaks my heart. And so the Geneva event was more about with the commission. So it's all of this is Professor, if I can say something, is that what we're trying to do is, when Hachalu was murdered, we came together and brought the communities together. We promised them that we're going to seek justice for the murder of Hachalu and for the all killing that happened. And so I am happy that speaking to you from the continent, from motherland, on a topic that we have promised our community 2.5 years ago, that we are here to tell them that we are indeed making unimaginable progress with the investigation that's taking place with the UN, and the investigation now, even the commission that, we are optimistic will make a recommendation. Whatever recommendation that is going to be made for Ethiopia should take Oromo issue into their heart. Without the Oromo, there is no Ethiopia, there is no peace for Ethiopia, there is no regional stability. So therefore, to do that at the UN level, there's nobody higher than the UN, and to be able to be here at the commission, raise the Oromo issue for all the 11 commissioners, along with the 54 countries who are there listening to the commission recommendation, because the commission discussed about human rights. So it was really a dream come true. So it's good that happening with the UN, and now it's happening here in the continent. And I think we've learned a lot. I've learned so much during this trip, Professor.
Great achievement, Sena. And I heard you speak in Gambia, and you, as you said, there is a tendency of providing due attention to what's happening in the northern part of Ethiopia. And it seems that what's happening on the northern part of Ethiopia overshadowed what's happening in Oromia. I think you were capitalizing on that. Would you mind just explaining that? Why the world tends to overlook what's happening in Oromia while a number of things are happening in that region?
I think, Professor, being where I am in the continent at the African Humans and People's Rights Commission, meeting with the regional leaders or some organization from the region, whether it's from East Africa or just the continent in general. Before that, having discussion with the UN, having discussion with the obviously another push we were making was for the US to send fact finders to Ethiopia with the murder of Hachalu. That's something that we pushed. And recently, you might have seen it, is in our website. We are promoting. US have also opened up a system for people to submit human rights violation. So I hope the Oromo community takes advantage of this to submit information. It's not just Oromo. I mean, we're speaking in English. So I hope my sisters in Kamand, my brothers in Benishangul Gumuz, in Ago, in every part of the country where the atrocity is taking place, they do take this opportunity and submit this to the UN, to the US, and to the African Commission. Hopefully, they will also open up something. There is a system that already in existence that people can submit. And therefore, why the question of why is it that Oromo did not get the cover that it needed, it deserves, or it necessitates because of the location of Oromo, the size of Oromo makes it necessitate the stability and the peace for Ethiopia and the region. It requires the focus in Oromo. But why that did not happen, if I can just say a few and then leave it at there, is many factor applies to it. First of all, at the end of the day, we're talking about African killing Africans. Who cares about that? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're killing your own people. Who cares about that? Secondly, you gotta look at the state of Ethiopia, how it's created. For 150 years, the northern, between the Amhara and Tigray, have been ruling Ethiopia. So these are rulers. These are the masters of the empire or the country who are at war with each other. If you look at it, and they are very powerful because they've been controlling the state. They have the resource, they have the network, they have connection. So they are able, and they know the system. So they are able to make the noise much better than us. But in addition to that, you also have to look at the size of the issue. Whereas the Oromos are majority. I mean, who have a sympathy for the majority? You don't hear. There is no commission. There is no investigation that is focused around the operation of majority. It's a rare case that happens. So it's always about minority, about women, about sexual violence that happen, whether it can be a woman or other stuff. So I think the fact that Oromos are such gigantic, and where you have Tigray have 6% of the population, are facing such atrocity that no one, unimaginable. Only by God's grace they are surviving. And then in addition to that, the politics within the internal country, and I do think it plays factor for the fact, for example, in the northern part of the country, it's predominantly Christian, where so that also does have a factor in it. And then when I come down the advocacy level, I mean, we've done a good advocacy, but it's still we are still far away from the mobilization of our people, because our people are divided. I think if I have to pinpoint the most challenging difficulty thing that paralyzed us or paralyzed Oromo is the internal division. Something that is hard to admit, but it is quite the reality. Because if you remember, from 2014 to 2018 until change came, Oromo was united. There's one common enemy. Whether you are from east, west, whether you are from whatever party, you are kind of united against this against this enemy. What's happening to the Tigray? They have the Tigray people are now united. Even those who did not support the TPLF during the election, but right now they are united because they are facing a common threat. Whether that is ENDF, whether that is the Amhara militia, Amhara Fano, or whether that is Eritrean military. So they have common enemy. They must come together. If not, they're going to be annihilated. Whereas in Oromo, it's much complicated, because you have the Oromos are committing atrocities, both against Oromos and against Tigrayans and against anybody. I mean, there are lots of hands in it. So I think that internal division played significant role, and that paralyzed not just on the ground, it also paralyzed here in diaspora too, Professor.
Great reflection. I recognize that there are a number of complicated factors over there with regard to Oromia. But one important thing is that both the national, regional, the continent, and the world should understand that without solving the challenges, problems that are going on in Oromia, it's impossible to solve the problem of Ethiopia, and then the problem of the continent, as well as perhaps that goes beyond Africa. And let me ask you one final question. I think Ola and Sena, the executive director of Ola, is everywhere these days, working hard towards, you see, success in terms of standing against human rights violation and what's happening in Ethiopia, and particularly in Oromia. How do you describe your mission, and was it a success? And if yes, tell us a bit about the success story that you can claim.
Thank you, Professor. And it's going to be unfair, or it's not really in our culture to brag about our success. But given the resource, given the division within Oromo, given the paralysis that is continue to exist in the diaspora, both back home, and above all, given the mission we started 2.5 years ago. You are probably, back home, and you yourself were arrested around that time. We came when Hachalu was murdered. Everybody was so shocked, and then the very next day, lots of people, the major opposition party leaders were arrested, and Oromo people were left without leader, without voice, and completely disseminated. It is at this moment, because we've been in existence and because we are expert in advocacy region, that we step up and told our community that we're going to seek justice. We're going to make sure independent investigation takes place into the murder of Hachalu, into the killing of Oromo people in that country. So, Professor, if leaving everything aside, if you look at that statement, and that is the promise that we made it to our people, and so right now, 2.5 years later, because that killing happened in June 2020, and we are in 2022 and almost November, that to know that UN is going to investigate, and not because we're saying, but because it is in their statement and they are doing it, and to be at the African Commission to talk to the commissioner who is the special rapporteur, and to raise the Oromo voice at the UN, at the US, at the EU and African Commission level. I think that is success. And today, if you go to a lot of places, you hear the Oromo name, and everybody knows that. And I don't know if you go back 5-6 years, Professor, it's really, I mean, it's nobody knows Oromo, but even if they know Oromo, it's kind of synonym with the terrorist or separatist group or people who are committing violence against other group. If you remember with the violence that took place in October 2019, that when the Oromos were massacred with the incident of Jawar, then the Oromo Pope Francis, the highest Catholic Orthodox leader, I believe, was praying for the Christian Amharas. After this, the violence was against Amharas. But today, you don't see such a thing. Everybody might not be speaking, might not be calling out for justice, but everybody knows that Oromos are facing atrocity. I think when I look at that one, I think we have succeeded, and the evidence is there. But this is also, human rights is not something that you accomplish and you graduate, you move away. It is something that goes on forever, because today might be about the Oromo, tomorrow is about different human rights issue, even if the country, changes to better. So that is something that's going to be ongoing.
Thank you so much for your great contribution, Sena. And I usually advocate that Oromos should unite, organize, and we need to keep on teaching our people. Now, I'll give you a few seconds if you have a final remark or remarks.
I think I've did, but I'll just take this opportunity to say, first and foremost, and Professor, thank you so much for having me here. I wanted to thank everybody that had confidence and trust on us and to support us, and we hope they are following what we do, because we publish a lot of important documents that we feel like the community should utilize it. And that even though the UN is going to investigate, but we still have to provide data, and that's going to be relied on individuals, people who are family back home, people who know somebody that think they are going to follow us and see what we do. We also call on to the international community that, to continue to reach out to us. And there are many, many more who have not reached out to us, who have not spoken to us. It is very important that they engaged, and the U.S. government in particular, that, the prime minister or the ruling party plays the relative that U.S. is only for the TPLF, and so we want to make sure that is not the case. And to do that, they need to continue to engage the Oromos and our people in diaspora, like you say, is both everywhere. They need to be united. We are our enemy. So I do often say that, and whether it's as Ethiopian or as an Oromo, the problem is within us. And obviously, we are working very tirelessly because we need to provide a lot of data. There's a lot of data that is missing. In fact, the only data that we have, or everybody have, is in the western part of Oromia. But the rest of the part of Oromia, that's happening, the atrocity, whether it's Guji, whether it's Borana, it doesn't exist. And to get those data is hard, and whether it's other parts too. And I think people from that area need to be engaged. The international community need to really look into Ethiopia whole, not just in Oromia and Tigray, but actually across. Small minority group are facing much more atrocity that we're facing. So I would say that that's the case. And finally, obviously, our work is just, still, it's just beginning. It's not ending. We're going to continue to do. And I'm hoping to come back to the state next week. And I have a few places that I'm planning to visit. And then also, as I said today, we just spoke, our partners spoke about the Oromos. And we try to make that video available soon. So once we can comment on that later on. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Expecting you eagerly. With this, we conclude our discussion today with Sena Jimjimo on the current situation of Ethiopia and Oromia on human rights related issues. For those of you who would like to share your vision, hopes, and professional critics, the door is open. Please contact me through my Facebook. My name is Hussein Kadir. See you next time. Profoundly thank you, Sena. This is the future of Africa. In this program, we focus on Horn of Africa's political, economic, and socio-cultural aspects. Let's share our vision, hopes, and professional critics. All views are esteemed. Stay with us.